feel like I'm walking through
Green
the
room.
forest.
Oh, I have my little. Yeah, was this better?
No.
Huh? Captions. Green room. Okay, so guys, welcome.
Thank you.
In a minute, we'll see who's joining us. Out there in the streaming world. But yeah.
Yeah, this is the moment. This is the moment where we do the.
This moment? I thought it was going to be
Jesus, Kurt,
in the
where's your
show.
shirt? Where's your shirt? We can do it in the show too. It's your practice.
Very, very proud to see her on that stage.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I honestly have.
That's going to make the episode too. But
the most FOMO.
Not that part, but the next time.
This is like the most FOMO I ever had.
Dude, I mean,
was seeing all the photographs of you guys together.
Yeah.
Hardcore FOMO.
And what did I text you afterwards?
I should be there next year.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so
Really? Yeah.
So I think next year will be even more exciting, right? Because you have like the handoff from Evelyn to Ilya. Because I saw some photos of how Kim sort of does the handoff. Like, I guess the medal goes as like sort of presented by past to future president.
And then the future becomes the present, and then the present gives the past a medal.
A new medal. Past president's medal.
Ooh, yeah, there's more medals. There's all kinds.
Goes back and forth.
I was also jealous of all the bling I saw. Brad had multiple danglies around his neck,
Just two.
Yeah, that's multiple.
And what? You're in that box, and you had your own.
I did.
Yep. Same one. Well, one of the same ones. Yeah.
Is it the Thune?
I had just gotten that as being outgoing member on the Strategic Council, but Ben and I both are past presidents for AA South Carolina. So.
Oh, so South Carolina. This one.
Yep.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if Michigan. So
no, I was saying it's kind of funny because you get it from your state, but you can't wear it around your state.
Yeah.
It's only funny that we can wear it when we come to a national event. So.
Well, they don't like. Is it frowned upon when you wear it?
I wouldn't say it's not frowned upon. It's just.
You're kind of ribbed for it a little bit.
Yeah. But you're
like we already know.
It's like a Carolina thing.
You're sort of a small fish in a big pond when you go up to the national presidential inauguration. So, but it's all good.
Well, that's cool.
Kurt's just looking for bling.
Sorry,
all blinged out.
Trying to keep
I can't wear mine around the house either. Your kid's in soccer and he's got like 7-8 medals, so your one means nothing to him.
You guys should have wore it tonight. You can just like wear them, just all of them, just put them all on. Yeah.
Oops, I'm sorry, guys. I'm playing with the buttons. Because the names, where are the names? Why are the names not there?
I don't know where the names went, buddy.
It's kind of funny. Anyway, sorry. I'm just gonna let it go. Let it ride. Yeah. So
So let's do a weather check. So like I will just say, it's like we got to a high of 80 degrees today, which was amazing. And then they keep telling us that there's this cold front coming, which I'm not looking forward to, but that's on the way. So snow on the ground, Kurt? Yes, no?
Not right now.
Okay.
No, maybe tonight is supposed to snow. A little chance of snow. So actually today was warm. I'm looking at my phone for the weather. It was 42 today, which was unseasonably warm, right? Which is the effects of climate change.
What about you, gentlemen?
35 tomorrow.
It's currently 57 degrees under clear skies here in Greenville, South Carolina.
There you go. You just fit your role perfect. That just was great. Like, and with like the background, like I expected like that wall to just like morph into like, and here's the weather current, right there.
And
like
then
here's a
there's
high pressure dome, and
I do think Brad's got the best background now.
yeah.
It's probably the most professional.
Yeah.
I'd rather
Ready
have the
for-
Star Wars
I was gonna say,
Lego background though.
yeah, that one looks like the hell of a lot more fun.
Yeah,
It
that's
does.
is it pronounced? I'm gonna out myself in the pronunciation. Is it at or ATAT?
AT is what.
Oh,
Some people say at, but I don't. I
think there goes my credibility
My
down.
brain's gonna go.
I've heard it
Street
both
cred.
ways. So,
No, it's an
maybe-
AT-AT. Come on,
Maybe
it's an
that
AT-AT.
can be the poll for the evening.
If it's capitalized, it's got to be an acronym.
It's all terrain
Oh,
attack
oh,
transporter.
Oh, see,
AT-AT.
AT. Well, I'm sure those in the military would probably pronounce it in AT-AT because they have a
Yeah,
lot
they
of.
would, because they'd be like getting shot at,
Yeah.
and doing stuff, big guns.
See, I
something.
don't have the AT-AT, but I do have the TIE Fighter and an X-wing, and I got a couple of
You're
them.
you're like, hey, move out of the way. Let me see what else is on that shelf.
There's the Millennium Falcon, and then there's some dinosaurs.
That's cool.
The
You know,
X-Wing up
I
there.
think there's no, those aren't like Lego. They're actual models. Like
No, they're Lego. Yeah.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. There's interesting somebody else
Oh, do you
should
got
probably make a
clock,
podcast
too?
all about architects
clock
that
up
like
there? Hell
Legos
yeah, it is.
and Star Wars.
All right,
It is.
I can see it all.
Because
It's all good. I love it.
there's a lot of us. We've had Stephen Parker on. He's kind of a nerd for that.
There's
You
also if you recognize the John Lautner house, that's the scene from The Big Lebowski.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Just doing a tour. He's like, just pick up the laptop and just walk us around your house.
The bonus room rapidly descends into chaos beyond.
It's like
look
this is regular, right?
Yeah.
That's a good set. So Ben, are you
wait,
also in Greenville? No, curious though. You're both in
Yeah.
Greenville?
Yeah,
Okay.
but it was a
Gotta
high
get
of
my-
57 today.
Get
to
my
back on
geography straight.
the middle-aged white men discussion on the weather.
Hey, it's a thing. All right, it's a thing. Like, anyhow.
Well, sometimes the green room is a weather channel, a sports channel, a gossip channel.
Yeah, gossip.
Sometimes,
Gossip.
I don't know.
I'm gossip.
I mean, most people don't, unless they watch the stream, don't get this part. So
Yeah, they just like no one ever.
exclusive.
This is like if you know, you know. Like
Yeah.
this is the FOMO
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
So I got a question for y'all. This is the pop quiz because this came up.
Sometimes it's a
this
quiz.
came up in DC at Strategic Council. I was meeting people in my focus group, trying to introduce myself, and everybody went around the room, did their little like who I am and what I do, and like what's special to me and all that kind of stuff, or what you don't know about me. And so a gentleman sitting like to my left, he's not here right now, obviously.
Your other left.
Gavin. He was from Missouri, maybe Missouri. Yes, Missouri. Also loves
state.
Lego, and like that's his happy place. He was very excited to tell us about that, and also just sort of like he was. I think he was manifesting like his next purchase, which was kind of fun. But after we kept around the table, I leaned over to him and I said, "So, do you know there's a word for like the sound of like going through Legos? You know,
Rummaging for the pieces.
because it's sort of like that calming like sensation and sound of
What do they
and everyone
call
knows
that?
it. Do you know what the word's called?
Onomatopoeia or something?
No.
Well, what's the?
Onomatopoeia is the word that makes this that explains
Right.
the sound. But you're
Right.
close.
Right. But that's not this.
Okay.
Do you know the word?
I do not.
No.
Lego
one?
Mania?
No one?
No.
Knolling.
Knolling.
Rolling.
Is it with a KN?
Of course.
Knolling?
Of course.
That's
Canoling.
exactly what I was going to ask.
I think it's actually canoling, but Canadian pronunciation, it's knolling.
Adding.
Thank you.
Nooling, eh?
Cheers, gentlemen.
Oh, that
You know,
reminds me. I'm gonna save this little anecdote. Sometimes I forget them, but I think I will remember.
I love when Kurt says he's got one and
I'm gonna
doesn't
save
tell
it for
me,
the show.
doesn't tell us. He's gonna save it for the show, and it never comes up.
Sometimes, but I this one is a good one.
Mm.
For Jamie, it's a Canadian joke, so I'll remember. It's not a joke. It's actually, well, it's
Does it
probably an
involve maple
inside
syrup?
joke. It does.
Of course it does.
It does.
Yeah.
Now, hold on. Now I got to do a little more research.
He's got to see if he's right. It's gonna be like a quiz.
Oh, I got it. Nope. It's just I wanted to get my the name, the accurate name.
Okay.
But anyway, this I apologize, guys. This music is kind of a drag all the way. We should switch it to. I guess we should switch it to Christmas music.
Yeah.
Although that Minimal House channel was starting to
I
show promise.
watched a fascinating documentary that just came out on Netflix. It's on Wham's Last Christmas Song. It's pretty.
Oh yeah.
That sounds.
Have you been whammed yet?
No.
Because that is a game.
Getting whammed?
At
Like from-
Christmas time
with
yeah,
the
for
band wham?
song. Like
Oh.
if how long can you go in the month before you hear the song?
Yeah. Well, it was number one in the charts last year in the UK. That was the.
Wow.
I believe it.
Dang.
They thought they had a number one hit when the song was being released, but if you could guess what song overtook it in 1984 as the number one hit.
84.
Like a virgin? Or
No,
are we talking about Christmas
it
songs?
has to be at Christmas time. So
84? Hmm.
Born in the USA.
no.
That's
It
not a
was-
Christmas
It was
song.
Band-Aid, the relief song.
Okay.
Oh.
Do you know it's Christmas time?
George, which George Michael also sang on, and he
Yeah, I was
acknowledged.
gonna say,
He acknowledged as he was doing it, he was shooting himself in the foot from getting the number one Christmas song he always wanted.
But he finally got
Made
it.
out
He
okay.
did posthumously. He got it. Yes.
Oh, that's you guys are right on. This is like exactly what we do,
This is it. This is
So you-
kind of like a weird upbeat, kind of like is that a tuba?
It is
Possibly.
possibly.
Feels
It's a horn.
Mm.
It does sound
Yeah,
like
maybe
a,
like a
more like a
bassoon.
movie. This is like movie soundtrack Christmas song.
I had to go back and look it up. So I go back to Legos. They're building $1 billion plant in Virginia.
What?
Really?
Yep.
Really?
Yep. LS3P is doing it. So my wife's
Really?
firm.
Oh, that's cool. That sounds exciting.
You're
You
like
know, the-
house?
There's all kinds of little tidbits about Lego. Like the very first Lego and the newest Lego will still
Click together.
the mold. I
Mhm.
mean, you know how many knockoff Legos there are that like don't make that. Isn't that fascinating? I
Mhm.
mean, I guess that's pretty nerdy technical, but like I find that sort of
Yeah.
detail fascinating.
First one and the last one.
The fact that the parts just work. Sometimes you nail it on the well, I wouldn't say it was the first try, but whatever it is, it does work.
Just like
They
this.
spent a bunch of money trying to do recycling on their products too, or
Yeah.
make their products out of recycled materials. So,
That's cool. Yeah,
and I think the challenge is that connection.
right.
Well, they finally have figured it out.
Yeah.
And the issue is there's not but one place that makes that resin. So they're investing $1 billion into building more plants, and they're going to eat that cost. They've already said, hey, we're not going to raise the price of Lego because they're already higher in toy. So they're just going to eat that $1 billion investment as their sustainability initiative to move to a green resin.
And then it's all then under one roof, so to speak. Although that is the
And it's
US.
still through suppliers that
US
are investing in the.
Yeah.
Well, that's good news
Yeah.
to end the year.
Sustainability
No, I like
Sustainability?
it. I mean, this is like
and Legos.
I felt like I just learned something, and I'm excited.
I could
Gotta go shopping.
drop that
It's
knowledge
Christmas
bomb on
time.
my students tomorrow, and a lot of my students love them too.
Dude, they're gonna be so
it's a
brain
timeless
dead,
classic.
like walking
Yeah.
into their final reviews. I don't think
They already
anything-
are.
Anything you'd say is just gonna be like the teacher in like Charlie Brown.
Well, we did have
With-
pencils down on Friday, so
Exactly.
but they have finals all the way up till Thursday. So yeah, they're
Final exams.
brain. Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't you guys schedule that like better? Like,
I'm telling you, everyone on campus is totally over how this fall semester. It seems to be extra long and extra late, and so yeah,
and that bassoon, just making that.
It's a long December.
It is. This is like the semester that will never end. Well, anyway, so the what else? Oh, I got my notes there.
You
I don't know. What do you guys ready? You guys want to talk about?
You guys ready for this? Are you
Jump
ready?
in.
For, are you
I brought
doing
a
the
coffee
thing?
prop too. I don't know if we need
You
a
got,
coffee.
I got a
Yeah.
coffee prop. I got one too. Good.
All right.
You guys have been there. You've heard it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh damn it! I got to go in the kitchen.
Well, I would if you want me to, but do I have to?
No, you don't have to. It's like,
Is this
You're
a free
missing out.
country? It's a
yeah,
free country. Can
you're good.
I not go get the props? Okay. All right. Good. Let's take all those who joined us live into the show. But first, I need to get all the
Find
intro
your
teed up.
buttons. Find your buttons.
Buttons are ready. All right. 30 seconds. We'll be in the show.
Countdown.
Hey guys, as I said, multiples, not just Jamie. We've got guests again. We're getting good at this guest thing, Jamie.
This is like the gift that keeps on giving for us. Like this season, like we're just bringing folks, the joy of conversation with us.
Oh, so that's not the angle I was going at. So we had.
Hey,
So
sorry, I went in a different direction.
so I'll briefly introduce our guests, and then we can let them expand upon their enjoyment, their value add to the podcast.
Do I dare say that this is episode 166?
We could say that. I mean,
Okay.
it in the sequence of things, it will most likely be 166 of the total, and so that for the
We are shooting for 167 to end 2024.
so there will be one more if these guys allow it. So we have Brad Benjamin and Ben Ward with us, in no particular order, but two good friends, great friends, dare I say, and also architects,
old friends, but not in age,
Friend?
just old friends.
So, but also from the same locale as we, we just did a weather check for our podcast in the green room. So Brad, Ben, which whoever wants to tell us, point at the
Okay,
map,
so
the weather map.
I got a quick question for you guys. So like, I'm in Austin, Kurt's in Flint. You guys are on the East Coast in the same city.
Yep.
How physically close are you?
Oh,
Oh,
Ooh.
we're
Mm.
probably 4 miles apart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
in traffic.
I don't know why that fascinated me for the moment, but just it did. So with that, please, without further ado, please introduce yourselves.
Well, I'm Brad Benjamin. I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. Started a small firm, it's almost 13 years ago, Radium Architecture. We do a variety of projects, higher education, healthcare, some retail. We've done some interesting projects. We've done some breweries. We've done recently. We did a dry lab that produces lithium batteries. It had to be 2% humidity. I don't know if you guys ever experienced 2% humidity. It's very hard to get to.
Static
Yep.
galore.
Yes. The whole 9 yards. So we've done a variety of projects over the years.
That's cool.
Kurt just had like a
I'm sure we'll
total
unpack
freak out moment right there where you were just like, ooh.
Well, when I live in the most north, not to interrupt you, Ben, but I'm the most north of all of us.
Mhm.
And in the wintertime, we do get static because of the low moisture. We don't get 2%. It gets pretty low, but I don't know if we get 2% that low humidity in Michigan, but in the wintertime at least. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. I'm familiar with static there, Jamie. So how about you, Ben?
I'm Ben Ward. I originally from Fort Mill, South Carolina, now in Greenville. Went over and joined Brad this year at Radium. My general background has been healthcare architecture for past 13 years now. So done all variety of things. From as healthcare goes, you go from a single room renovation all the way up to full scale hospital. So I've kind of done the full gamut.
Yeah, I used to do a little healthcare at the firm I used to work at. In my experience has mostly been in like some assisted living and dialysis clinics. I don't know if you guys have ever dabbled in dialysis, and a little medical office, but medical office is really like business use, for those that read the code book. So, but the dialysis was tricky. It's interesting. It's very particular. So anyway, that's
Yeah, and I even
that's what I
cut
know.
my teeth at the beginning of my career doing a little bit of healthcare work. So
Yeah.
definitely like the whole generalist thing. So Medical City in Dallas, like the hospital crazy complex and ambulatory surgery centers and operating rooms and all the office buildings that Kurt's talking about. So architecture, big A architecture.
Yeah.
Well, we were planning on talking a little bit about small firm stuff later, right? After we got to talk about coffee first. That's the format, guys. So because there actually have some questions about healthcare and small firm stuff. So we'll definitely circle back to that. But we should probably talk about coffee, Jamie. And so we got to let the guests go first because otherwise it would be very rude.
Okay.
And so how about we'll start with Ben since he's got a nice mug.
I do have a nice mug. This is actually my Nespresso Advent calendar mug. Today's was actually a peanut toasted sesame, which I am not a coffee flavor guy. That was the first 2 rating I gave on a 1 to 10 scale. But
you're a tough grader. Whoa!
But I got to show you. Like this is the box that the Advent calendar comes in. So you kind of open it up, and you can see you've got each day. It is gorgeously designed.
Was that
I think
like
you
a
were
gift?
Coming with the best props, by the way.
Yeah.
So
A+.
Gene Imbert, the chef, actually designed the box. It's got the Bellman train on the box, but it's always to me fascinating when a company takes a lot of care in their graphic design and the presentation. I mean, they could have done this in some cheap little dispenser, but this is like a very well made box. It's one of those things you're like, I hate to throw it away after the season's done, but
yeah. So is that a gift or is it a self gift? Like,
it was a self gift. Trying to be sustainable, I went to order recycling bags for my Nespresso pods, and it would not let you buy the recycling bags because they were $0 and you couldn't check out a $0 item. So I had to add something to my cart to recycle, which is now it's a gimmick to recycle. So,
So you just went all in. You just
I
like
went
took
all in. I bought the
you
most
took all the
expensive
chips and you're
item on
just
the
like,
website.
that looks pretty
That's a
fantastic.
great-
I like the packaging.
That's a
Yes,
great story.
yes.
Yeah.
Mm,
You know,
done.
I knew there was going to be something to that. You know, there's always, and I would have done the same thing. I'm not going to lie. I would have probably picked that.
Cool mug.
I like coffee.
That
As
is nice
most
mug.
people probably figured that part out by now,
Mhm,
that I like coffee, and therefore we invite people. We only have one exception. Should we even mention the exception, Jamie? Yep, this individual down here
She's on the shirt.
Really?
is not a coffee drinker,
Huh.
but we
Mm.
had to, you know, as you can imagine, we definitely let that let that one go because you know.
She has several other redeeming qualities that make up for the
Yeah.
for that deficiency.
She still got
Exactly.
coffee as a gift because,
Mm, right.
like she said, the household
Sure.
like they like
Yeah.
coffee. She doesn't like coffee, so she took one
Yeah.
for the team and said, "I still would like your coffee at my house." So,
But and a mug, right? She got a mug
oh yeah,
too.
yeah.
So you know, tea. She likes tea. Evelyn likes tea, so you know. Still
Mugs
got to
are-
drink tea out of a mug.
Yeah.
So what about you, Brad? Anything?
Well, I'm a big Starbucks guy, and I know that's either, you know, taboo or everybody gets on the Starbucks bandwagon, but I really like their coffee. I go every morning. All the baristas know my name. Not just, hey, you know, good morning. Hi, Brad. How are you? Like right when I walk in the door. So, and I usually just get either a venti or maybe a cafe Americano sometimes. So I don't really get any fancy, but I've got to have it. I mean, it either make or break my day.
So I have a question for you in this holiday season. I will say that, or well, let's back up. Let's back up. So
Mhm.
this is the end of the year, right? So we have the holiday season and we have the holiday blend coffee.
Yes,
Opinion?
I like it because I'm usually a dark roast kind of guy.
Same. Same.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they'll only brew pike in the afternoon. Not much on the blondes, but you know, if they've got it, it's dark roast all the way.
But I mean, their Christmas blend is by far of their seasonal coffees, like where their sort of brand is their best.
Absolutely, I think so.
I
I
am
agree.
not okay. Other question. Okay, I'm not even gonna. I gave it away. So pumpkin spice, hot garbage, right? Hot garbage.
We're taking
Okay.
a stance.
Right. I
Getting
will.
back up.
No, I will not have it at all.
There
No.
you go. Thank you.
No.
Thank you. That's why we're friends. That's why we're friends.
We actually, you know,
Ben
I
has
did.
a difference
Oh,
of
go ahead.
opinion, though.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think I
oh,
saw some other
uh-oh.
cringy moments
Oh.
there. So yeah.
We like a little. We all can agree because otherwise it would be very boring to,
Right.
to have this
This is
conversation.
Yeah, and usually we're not this aggressive about the coffee, by the way. So it's
Mm.
like, I mean, there are moments like I do get a little bit aggressive and, about some of the coffee stuff. But generally speaking, just like the sketches, we're welcoming to all opinions.
So
That's right.
I've had the do they call it holiday blend or do they call it Christmas
I
blend?
think so. My dad is not a fan. He's like, it's a little bit too rich for me.
I like it.
Okay, Dad.
They have two different ones. They have a holiday. I don't know if it's just the bag that's different, but there's a holiday blend and a Christmas blend because you have
That's
to
right.
be.
There is. You're right.
Universal.
You
I
have-
believe the holiday's the blonde one, right? This year.
It might be.
I think that's right. I think you're right. Yes.
I did not have that one. I had the other one. And I didn't like because I don't really like the blonde roasted coffees anyway either. So I had the dark
But
roast.
the blonde roasted coffees do have more caffeine.
I thought you were going to say more fun.
No. Well, I don't know. Maybe,
They could.
Could be more caffeine. More
Well, they
fun.
do. Yeah, right. They dark roasts are generally less caffeine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so there's
So-
a trade off. Yeah.
So Kurt, what's the coffee of the day for you today?
So I went. So Jamie knows that I go. So around our parts here, we do have a small grocer that has like the bulk bins where you pull the lever and fill the bag. And so this time around, I went and got the darkest. They had the little meter, the little light to dark, and I got the darkest one they had, which the name was called Dark as Midnight. Dark roast.
That sounds promising.
And it's good. Actually, I don't think it really. I think it could be darker. Like, so we talk a lot about Rootless Coffee, which is a local Flint roaster, and they make one that they just call Dark, which is pretty dark roast. I think the one that I got from the bulk store wasn't quite as. It's not quite there, but it's good.
Not
But
robust.
No,
I mean,
the
other thing with the Rootless is that we do like their brand and graphic presentation.
Yeah, Ben was saying, the care in packaging and design and stuff like that.
It speaks to us.
Each of their roasts come with the label is designed by a different artist and stuff.
Like, I've not had the dark. Like, I've not gotten that care package yet, but the bag looks pretty amazing. Yeah.
Oh, I gotta get. Well, I'll have to. Now I have to share. Now I know another. Brad likes dark, so
it's like I'm just putting in the order.
And Ben likes dark. He might get one too.
Yeah. Dark is preferred if you look down on espresso ratings.
Sounds good. So, Jamie, are you drinking the podcast coffee? Is that what you're trying to allude to?
No. Look at there.
Oh, yeah. So, talking about brand advertising, so, so our friends at Rootless, have made kind of, it's more of a medium blend, but it has sort of some really good sort of chocolate notes to it. And
next batch, we should probably request something dark.
Yeah, go a little
See if we
darker
can go
with
there.
it. Yeah. Well, then we need to come up with a different, Kurt really loves like the brand and the sketches and stuff, and so in a certain way, and so we have two versions of the brand and logo, and so we went, one kind of on everything, and then the one for the bag was sort of an homage to the alternate and the original,
right,
which is sort of Carlos Scarpa, Castelvecchio, lean into the whole thing. So I don't know. Okay, if you guys know us, since you got two architects here and we're talking branding, we're whiteboarding it right now, right?
Okay.
This is what kind of the whole thing. So
this is Shark Tank moment.
Well, kind of. So if Carlos Scarpa Castelvecchio is sort of our medium roast and sort of on brand for us, where would you go sketch wise for a dark roast?
Castelvecchio is one of my favorite buildings.
Or building / architect.
Yeah, you can go building or architect. You can go off of Scarpa,
that's a good question. Something we haven't talked about at all.
So so if we went, we've talked, just to we have talked about how, in video games, you got the boss and then you got the final boss, and there's a bunch of intermediate bosses in there that you have to beat along the way, different levels. So we've got a whole thing with architects that we have never shared with anybody. We've had some banter on it. That's not this episode. This episode, though, is... you guys can come back for that episode. But this episode...
We still have yet to create that. Yeah,
we haven't done that episode yet. But it's going to be I think it might be March Madness. I think we might do it in March Madness. But that would be smart. If we were really thinking, we would really do it then. But this is architect or architecture dark roast.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I go to Ondo immediately. I'm thinking Temple of the Light, where it's kind of like dark when you enter. But then there's this burst of flavor or the burst of light when you come on the other side.
And he was a boxer.
Oh, yes,
true.
That's right.
He was. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very odd, isn't it? Huh? his internship was in a boxing ring. So
I think I might have to say Aldo Rossi.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mm. Yeah, and he's got quite a few good ones. I don't remember where he did a columbarium as part of a cemetery we actually visited when I was in our European program.
I like this. Go. Keep going. Keep going. Give me more.
Well,
You know, the whole.
Yeah.
Arthur did his cemetery too. This is a very interesting
Oh, yeah.
link.
Yeah, the Brion Cemetery.
So we're only doing architects have done cemeteries for coffee.
Hey, I'm good. This is good, and they're both dead.
Oh,
I can't remember, but on the flip side, they did a really nice like an apartment complex in Berlin also. And it's kind of it's not one or the other. I mean, he didn't stick to one project type. He spanned across several. So
no, that's good. I didn't think about Rossi. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, these are fun. Yeah, and Ando too. I think is kind of an interesting.
Ando's going to be fun, like when we get into the bracketology in March. So you guys come back for that. So
I reached far for that one, but I liked his work a lot.
Oh, yeah. No, that's good. I like.
We don't talk about Rossi as much. Of a lot of the things we've talked about, we don't talk about Rossi, so that would be fun to revisit too. So
there's a couple of our listeners who are going, I have no idea what they're talking about.
Well, that's why we're here, because it's an educational podcast.
Yeah, we do that. There's an educational component to all this stuff. Like I don't know. Oh man, it just left my brain. So I just had my senior moment. Ben. Sorry.
Well, while you think about that, let me interject, since we're still on the coffee pre-sketch chat. I alluded in the green room. I was teasing Jamie. We were doing a little light teasing of Jamie's Canadianness, and maple syrup. So I was listening to what I always listen to pretty much in the car, is public radio, and they were interviewing either the producer or the director of a movie called The Sticky. Has anybody heard of this? It is a movie, a fictitious movie that is based off of the Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist.
I've heard of the heist.
Yeah. They made a movie where there were 3,000 tons of maple syrup stolen from the reserves, Jamie.
Do you understand what I'm going to be doing at Christmas with my family now?
Watching this movie.
I'm going to be watching that movie.
Although I think it's in a theater release, but in your art housey. So you're going to have to find a dive.
I will go to the art house. I will tell them about it because they're not going to go. But
it's a little esoteric, I'm sure. Yes,
probably, yeah.
But the premise and the way the interview went, it sounds hilarious. Actually, it's very funny.
It's going to be on Prime Video for free. So there you go.
Oh,
if you have it is. It is. Yeah. Did you find it? Oh, sweet.
I did. I already found it.
Thank you, sir. Just saved
the rest of the podcast. We'll stream it.
You just saved my Christmas.
I don't know.
It's not geofenced or geolocked, is it? You can only get it in the U.S. or Canada.
Right. No. That's only for Strange Brew. Have you guys seen? So have you seen Strange Brew? Please tell me you have.
Oh yeah.
Ben, do you know what Strange Brew is?
Do not.
Honestly, I could say the name is familiar. I don't know if I've.
Kurt, you don't know what is? How have we not talked about this? How is that?
I mean, sometimes
this is one of those moments where the mic's gonna. I'm gonna just push the table over and
Jamie's out of here.
I'm out of here.
Wow, that's a
Brad. Thank you.
You must have had a misspent youth like you, just watching movies all the time. Because I'll do some movie quotes and people look at me like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Sorry.
My wife teases me about that. She's like, "Did you read any books ever?"
I read a lot of books.
Only when they made a movie out of it.
Exactly. I saw the movie.
Oh, it's such a good film. I mean,
All right, well,
like
it's my
I
holiday.
mean, yeah. See, I'm setting up a whole suite of films. Like
Yeah.
it's like I'm going to lean into the whole Canadian heritage. It's going to
You
be
know,
like
so
I'm going to
okay,
douse myself in maple syrup.
normally this is like the green room chat, like when we're talking about the pop culture movie podcasts, sub podcasts that we wind up having. But I will have to add in. I mean, I do this more often than not lately because Jamie's heard me talk about my students, but they're basically half my age, well, less than half my age, and
Yeah.
and we're just outside of Detroit, right? And I was explaining to a student the premise of RoboCop, and the student was like, "You mean a cyborg?" And I was like, "No, RoboCop. He's a
Shot in
robot,
Dallas.
and based in Detroit, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's set in a futuristic Detroit." And they're like, "Never heard of it." And I'm like, "Not
Oh.
even the remake with Joel Kinnaman?" And they're like,
Yeah.
"Never heard it." And I'm like,
See,
What a great all for all of you.
"Yeah, right. Yeah, a whole letter."
well, and here's the thing too, right?
If I
Like
if
this
I
is
did that with multiple movies, everybody be walking out with an F.
I mean, well, and the appreciation of architecture and film. I mean, it's like the movie doesn't have to be about an architect, but it's like, set design and sort of futurism, and I mean, it's all throughout history and sort of architecture theory and whatnot. And then even if you just go to pop culture moments, and like you said, RoboCop. So RoboCop set in a futuristic Detroit. I.M. Pei's City Hall for Dallas is the backdrop for futuristic Detroit. So it's like you have this seminal architect with this crazy building that a lot of Dallasites really, really hate. But it's kind of an awesome building, as a brutal structure. And then of course the set designers sort of like extrude it and make it a little bit extra. But I mean, that's the whole thing, is all those kind of moments you can, then you go, Lebius Woods with 12 Monkeys, and all that stuff. I mean, there's tons and tons.
Yeah.
And to know that students today, I will say it's not all students, Kurt, because I have someone who works with me, Gen Z, who also he's architecturally trained, but also has an appreciation for film. And so that intersection is one where I can actually go like deep cuts, and that's doesn't make me feel so old.
Yeah. So, we have, I think these are fun aspects of, even though we're not just talking about sketch, they still relative, there's relative value in the movie. Like Jamie said, the pop culture tie-in. It is kind of funny though. The dystopian features are always like the buildings that people generally hate.
Oh, I know what it was.
Oh, yeah.
I almost have it.
Oh,
I don't
brutal.
have the whole thing in my brain, but I was looking at Ben, and it made me think of it. So, because he's the youngest among us, I think I'm making assumptions. Just roll with it. Just roll with it. Just roll
he has
with
the
it.
I'll go
least
with it.
gray hair.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
So, like I was watching. There's this young woman. Today I realized she went to Yale because she name dropped it. She looked really, really subtle about name dropping it, but like it was architecture, Yale.
Sounds about right.
She slipped it in there. But super smart, has a really kind of great way of talking about architecture in a very kind of disarming kind of way, and on a variety of different subjects. And so her social media presence is about talking about architecture, so that it's sort of educating people, but it's very conversational. And so it's kind of fun to watch every once in a while. Happened to catch one today at lunch, and so she's going through kind of architects that you should know, and so she's I think talking to her generation a little bit. And then, but it was also sort of architects you should know and fun facts about them that you might not know. And so again, she kind of mentions Ondo. I think she even mentions the boxing, or maybe that was me projecting. But I don't think she talked about the boxing. I knew about the boxing, but then she gets to one of the other architects, and it was like Oh, I know what it was. She was talking about architects who didn't go to architecture school, and so she had like 4 of them, and so she gets through all 4, and like none of them went to architecture school. And and it was one of these moments where like I'm sitting there going, yeah, there's this generation of people who are in school, like that Kurt's teaching, who I don't know what kind of architecture history class they're going through, because it's like they're missing out on like oodles and oodles of architects and connecting it to pretty seminal works that should be things that you can pop off and go, oh, that reminds me of this project by so and so, and there's this piece and there's this element of it, and that's what you're working on. And I think that's the thing that I find when I jump into reviews now, that it's not so much like that you're trying to educate anybody, but you're trying to have a dialogue with them, and you're trying to do it through art or architecture as sort of reference points. And so if people aren't visiting these things and traveling, or not being exposed to them sort of in a breadth of exposure, like I talked to somebody recently, that I work with, and I said, I realized that sort of South American architecture was like this complete blind spot in my undergraduate education. And so the minute we had somebody who had that expertise in school, like teaching us, I was like, I'm taking that class, because like that's a whole part of the world that I didn't necessarily know. And I feel very fortunate to kind of have that and have those kinds of conversations, and but sort of recognize that blind spot. And in hearing this person talk about it to their audience, it sort of made me think, wow, we just need to keep having these conversations about things that we like Brad mentioning Rossi. I'd kind of forgotten about him, honestly, and it's like, and I feel bad.
It's along those lines. I remember, in school, undergraduate, 30 years ago, we had a library, and your exposure was limited to whatever they really had in the library, either with books or with what was published in magazines. But now with the internet, I mean, that's broken wide open. Like, you're not kind of funneled down on limited to what has actually been published. There's a whole just plethora of information and sources you can pull from, because your images are virtually unlimited, right? Or you can go on Google Earth and go in to look at something. It's just a whole new world. And like I said, there's no reason why anybody should be limited to a certain a viewpoint now if they have the world's at your fingertips. I mean, it's a game changer.
But I will say, though, is that one critique of that is, as much as there's a beauty in having the world at your fingertips, which I love, but is also understanding context, and sort of
Sure.
and sort of realizing that when you're going to exemplars and you're looking at precedent for a particular building type that you may be working on, and you're only doing a Google search, and you're letting that search criteria generate your top 3 or 5 things that it thinks you need to go look at. You're not necessarily doing that deep dive. And though those things might be good things to look at, if you don't do that and look at context, then you yourself aren't becoming that architecture critic. You're not being able to look not critic like I write in a magazine. Gosh, I'm old. But like, but it's, critiquing it, being able to think critically about it, being able to take that project in Norway and that project in Boston and look at them because they're both the same building type, and kind of understand the rationale between certain decisions that are being made, and then applying it, obviously not plagiarizing it or something like that, but kind of applying it and being inspired by it for your own work. That's that sort of critical thinking that, to me, is when someone's bringing their A game.
And for me, that's that's what the guiding hand of the professor does. You know,
Right.
not just at a pinup, but at a desk crit, talk about those things. If you only brought those 3 Google images, a student did, then that professor goes, "Hey, listen," and just goes into what you just said. You need to look deeper than this. Where does this take you? To me, that's a great role of the professor, is to just nurture and Sherpa that student to look differently, look at more than just what's been presented to them, and get them to be inspired to do that deep dive.
I have an image of now Kurt on like leading people up the Himalayas.
Well, it is winter time pretty much here in Michigan. Yeah. So next semester will still be winter, but no, actually, one, I'll just toss in a little anecdote, because it takes, I mean, when you teach a lot of people, there's some that sort of get it and engage. Then there's some that get it, but are a little, maybe not as passionate. And then there's some that don't really, aren't passionate, aren't really sort of hooked in. But I was trying to do the pop culture, like, again, with a different group, but we weren't talking about RoboCop anymore. We were talking about certain TV shows. And one student brought up Severance. I don't know if you guys watched Severance on Apple TV.
Heard good things. It's in the queue. Hadn't gotten there yet.
Yeah, it's great. So the second season is coming out. And so my student brought it up, and I was like, yeah, the office building is Bell Laboratories by Eero Saarinen. And they were like, yeah, I love that building. And I was like, yeah, Eero Saarinen, our Michigan hero,
Yeah.
that's Bell Lab. And you got to go, look up that building, Google it. Cause look at the campus and all, look at how, like Jamie was talking about, context and, the setting and things like that. But they were starting to connect with, like, oh, okay, I saw it on the show. I think it's really cool. It really, like, staged, made a nice backdrop for the premise of the TV show. And so those moments are kind of those are the better moments when people start clicking, they click and think about those sorts of things. And you can tie in something a little bit tangential, like TV or film or whatever, so it's not always just about a building or a book about architects and things like that, but it's something that they can kind of relate to from another like another perspective or another direction.
I was gonna along those lines. So I was gonna ask you guys, as sort of small firm, and I say guys, like, so this is that moment in the show, folks, where, like, normally Kurt is the curator of things and sort of leading the discussion, but I'm gonna put the curator hat on and sort of moderate this little talk a little bit, because I think the 3 of you guys have sort of some interesting perspectives about being a small firm practitioner, and foundationally where that sort of starts and sort of that entrepreneurial aspect of things. But I think there's also sort of a natural connection because of also how we all know each other, from a leadership perspective. So Brad, can you talk? I know, Ben is working with you now, but, from your perspective, can you talk a little bit about the genesis of your firm and kind of that, it's like the origin story, it's like the superhero moment, can you talk a little bit about the origin story for your practice and kind of what led you to it and, those kinds of decisions?
Yeah. So I guess, not to do too much of a deep dive into it, I just really wasn't satisfied at my previous firm. I didn't feel like I was being used to my best ability. I wasn't being challenged. I wasn't getting the types of assignments that I wanted. I was just sort of parked. And I felt like if I stayed, I wouldn't end up in the place in my career that I wanted. Sort of begin with the end in mind. I knew I wasn't on a path to be able to achieve the things that I wanted. So it just became pretty obvious one day, and I came home that day and I said, I'm done. It's just not going to work out. And with my wife being an architect as well, she understood. She was in the leadership of the other firm, knew the kind of position that I was in and the frustration I was having, and knew that it wasn't going to. She knew long before me that it wasn't going to work out. I just had to be the one to figure out it wasn't going to work out. Because I always was just like, no. I'm just being upset. I'm looking too deep into it. But my instinct was right. It wasn't going to work out. So I took about 6 months off, just so I could cool down a little bit and purge all of that negative energy out. And we were at a Christmas party, and another senior architect here in town, who had started his own firm and actually transitioned out of it, said, what's your plans for the future? I said, I don't really know right now. I'm still taking some time to figure it out. And he said, you need to take this opportunity to start your own firm. I said, that is the dumbest dumb idea that I've ever heard in my life. And he said, no. I said, listen to me. Give it 5 years. If it fails, so what? Go back to working for somebody. It's not the worst thing in the world. He said, but you're at a point in your career and you have some things going for you that not a lot of people do have. You're in a great position. If you don't take this opportunity right now, you'll always regret it. He said, I'm at a point in my career that I can look back on things and give young architects like you this kind of advice. He said, what you choose to do with it's your own thing, but that's what I think you need to do. And so I said, okay, well, and I went home for a couple of days, and it sort of, started to germinate and take hold. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So I borrowed some money from the bank of mom and dad because they have the best interest rates. And I started my own firm in January of 11. Here we are. So right in, sort of it wasn't at the peak of the recession, but we were kind of still there, kind of coming out of it. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, and when I started, my studio was 2010. So yeah, so I know that time period really well, and we all sort of kind of started to get to know each other, or around there, ish. But what you're describing though is a lot of like Kurt's, like I could just see the smile on his face because I think that there was a lot of recognition of probably thoughts that he was having at that time period. But before we kind of swing to him, I'm just sort of curious, now that you've pulled Ben, you've pulled Ben into the fold. Can you guys talk a little bit about that, that dynamic, and maybe Ben?
Yeah, we're really early in the process, but I've known Ben for how long? 25 years, probably. So, and we go way back. We weren't at Clemson at the same time, but we knew each other there, and we've had similar AA paths, and I think we have similar personalities, in the way we approach things and the way we see things, and that makes a real difference, right? The way that, because it's a marriage, it really is. And you have to have somebody next to you that's willing to go the distance, to work as hard as you are, to be as ambitious as you are, to make things work. My current business partner is thinking about transitioning out of the firm, right? He's just now starting to talk about it, but the industry says 10 years is what you need to make a good transition work. And most architects just get to the end of the day one day and go, I need to sell this place. Who's willing to buy me out? And that's not, you can't do that. So you really have to start looking at somebody who's going to be there to take the reins. And I talked to Ben for quite some time about it, and it just wasn't the right time. And then this summer, it happened to work out.
Yeah, and I think it was definitely one of those scenarios where I was at. It was a largest firm I'd worked at, and you start looking around at the promotions and seeing the people that had just made senior associate or had just made associate principal, and it's like they've been there 10 years longer than me. So you just start doing math with your age, and it's one of those things that you don't want to find yourself in your late 50s and you're receiving your one share. So I think the opportunity to have more control over my destiny, and then listening to Brad and hearing give it 5 years, it's you've got to you will regret it if you don't.
Well, and would you say too, just between the two you guys, I mean, and Kurt, please jump in too, is I think from a service perspective, one of the things that we've talked about a lot with other guests and amongst ourselves too is sort of the AIA, and as an institute and as a professional society that we've all devoted a lot of time to, is that it's an accelerator in a sense, for leadership opportunities, but also sort of that finding those like-minded people, maybe not even in your region, or that you've initially you wouldn't have met necessarily otherwise. And hearing their stories or hearing their own challenges or aspirations, it's changed your perspective enough to sort of, to Brad's point, to trust your gut and go, yeah, let's go do this thing. And Ben, when you're sort of describing that, it sort of sounds like some of that is also like that calculation that we do about our careers, not just in the work that we're doing, but sort of in the perspective that we have because of the people that we've met. And I'm sort of curious if you guys could speak to that a little bit.
I think a big one for me was probably the Practice Innovation Lab, and that was 2018, right, Kurt? Or
17 or 18.
17 or 18.
Right around there, yeah.
And just having that global perspective where we were all in the room, 50 participants, and everybody there kind of had an entrepreneurial mindship, and going through those scenarios. And I know the most of businesses that were created were pretty outlandish, but it did at least make you start thinking, like, is there another way to go about this?
Yeah.
Is there another opportunity? Am I looking at my career correctly? So I would say that kind of planted the seed for me. I'd always had this notion of ownership was the goal, but was that because that's what I'd been told I needed to do early in my, in college, early in my career? It's like, you need to own a firm one day. And it's like, is that really the right path? So I think when I got to that Practice Innovation Lab and you really started pushing the notion of what a firm is and how a firm can practice in the modern day, that's really where the seed got planted. That there's some great ideas here. There's some things that I think I can do to improve the profession.
The intimidating thing about Practice Innovation Lab was like feeling like I was definitely not the smartest person in the room. But
absolutely,
that was the best part, I think, is the fact that there were so many other people.
I was in the room with Kurt. Knew I wasn't.
The saying that if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to switch the room.
Yeah.
You don't learn anything if you're the smartest person in the room. You need to be.
Yeah.
Exactly. My team had Catherine, and Emily Grandstaff. It was like I had the two of them, like one's on one side of me and then Catherine's on the other side, and they're like, and both of them are like, I don't know if that's a good idea. It's like, but yeah, no, I forget who else was on that team, but holy moly, it was.
Yeah, but that's a good. I appreciate that because, the atmosphere of that whole event, and then obviously fast forward a couple of years after that, and then it's pandemic times, and so many of the ideas that were, sort of, spitballed at Practice Innovation Lab had to happen, right? The remote models, and the decentralized camps of staff and talent and things like that, and so, but then everyone's basically dropped in the deep end, and that's kind of where I started my own company was through the pandemic, but I think being armed with those experiences through AIA at the Practice Innovation Lab, and I've also been made allies with friends at Entree Architect, right, which is Mark LePage's group, which is another fantastic cohort of people that is there to, like, hearing Brad's story about having that mentor type architect positively sort of encourage you to start your own firm is the people you want to surround yourself with, rather than the ones that are cutting down. There's some people here in Michigan, I'm not going to name names, of course, but I've talked to people that have run some pretty big firms in Michigan, and I've heard them outwardly say, "Oh, I would never tell my children to go into architecture because you're never going to make any money." And I tell them to go in the opposite direction. And I'm like, I don't think that's the stance that you want to, be putting out there.
Like, how are you
It's not a
treating
good way
your
to tell
employees?
get people to
Yeah, right.
not a good way to get people to buy your firm out. You're like,
Yeah. Where's that succession planning? I mean, that's where architecture gets its bad name, right, on the business side.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's interesting. And Ben, thank you for sort of bringing up Practice Innovation Lab, because I think that to think about that's 6 years ago or so now is kind of crazy. But it's like it's. I think those kinds of moments where there is a level of innovation, which, I mean, Evelyn was.
Evelyn was here.
I mean, that was her baby, right? And and I think that it's, and quietly so. I mean, as we all know Evelyn very well, but it's like, I think it was sort of quietly so, in the way that for her it was sort of positioning the institute, but at the time, and positioning a new generation of leadership at the time in a room to talk about not just sort of kind of global goals, but like the business of architecture. Like, what's the future of architecture? Like, what's the future of practice? And sort of the way that you were sort of talking about yourself in that big firm is sort of like looking around and going, okay, I like the work we do. I feel like I'm making a difference. I like the people I work with, but the leadership pathway is kind of murky, or it's like, wow, that's really an old way of thinking, not to be, too critical of them, not knowing who the firm is. But it's like, I think that paradigm shift that the Practice Innovation Lab started with as a premise, like, we are going to shift the paradigm, like, and not know what that answer is, and have a whole conference with that being the premise. Like, we're not even going to give you a lecture that's going to send you on a certain pathway. It's like, we're just going to assemble a group of people and just say, go.
It was very open.
And that was like, and to be at that point in our careers where we were set in that situation, looking back at it is so, it's such a gift. I mean, it was just such a gift, I mean, it's a gift for me, kind of where I was in my own career, but at the same time, the people that I've spoken with since then, like yourself, and it's, hearing that from other people is it's pretty indicative, I think, of everybody's experience with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it take some time away from it to realize that, what it was, how special that was, as or unique. I don't know, special, unique, which, pick a word, but the offering that it provided, and the outcomes from it too. So
well, and y'all's practice, how many folks are at Radium?
We'll see, 5.5. We've got 5 full-time employees and then a part-time business developer.
This way,
the
mouth, the better half.
Yeah. The gift of gab.
Yes. He is very outgoing.
Rein them
He
in.
arrives caffeinated. He doesn't need any coffee.
Yeah.
I always envy those people. You know, I could have a cup of coffee and go to bed.
I could too. I don't have any problem drinking coffee at any time of the day.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, we've got essentially 4 architects, an office manager, and our part-time BD guy is actually a retired healthcare architect. So,
And most of your work is sort of in the Greenville area, or is it sort of regional, or how does that work? I don't know that market very well, and honestly don't know the
Right.
geography too well either.
So yeah, we are in upstate South Carolina, which is sort of the northwest corner of the state. We are almost exactly halfway between Atlanta and Charlotte.
Okay.
Or sort of that area is called Charlanta, because it seems to be growing into sort of one big
Megalopolis.
urban sprawl area. But yeah, in that area, and we did pretty well in the Great Recession. Well, Charlotte and Atlanta did very poorly, but we seem to have weathered it fairly well, better than most areas. We've got a pretty robust economic development groups that keep a lot of industry coming into the state. And they're trying to breach into other areas of biomedical, and automotive's a big issue industry here, because the BMW has one of their largest plant in the world. I think in the world now is they make all the X3s, the X5s, X7s, I guess X4s, and X6s as well. All of them there. So
lots of X's. That's all. That's like the SUV, right? So it's
yeah.
yes,
probably
yes.
Probably you mostly see those in the States, right? They don't probably drive them so much overseas because of well, it depends.
You would,
Yeah. So,
they export a lot. They export a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. What about the did you start out with a partnership? Or so it was one?
It was just me.
And then the two.
Mm-hmm.
So was the two an employee or the partner?
The partner, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He was actually one of the partners at my former firm. So he had left a little bit before I did, and did a stint with a healthcare firm here in town. And once he wrote he wrote the final tuition check for his daughter's college, he said, "I'm going to do something fun now." So,
and so you're the fun. Are you saying?
Well, hey,
yeah.
Okay. You say that like you're surprised.
No. Well, I mean, maybe that's your pitch. Is that how you got Ben to work for you, or work with you? Is like, hey buddy,
so.
I'm fun.
I was promised fun.
Yeah, fun. Okay. How's that working out? Is that working out okay, Ben?
It is.
Okay.
Well, he's got all the Legos behind him, so
I know. Well, I mean, hey, that's promising. He looks happy. So
not a captive.
No, not like you're not putting up the newspaper going.
Oh.
We didn't establish the safe word before the show started.
I know. We're gonna keep you guys for a while.
So
did so far?
Did we want to talk about sketch, or you want to keep talking?
God, I hope so.
Talk and chop.
I mean, that is part of the podcast.
Well, I mean, like right now, or
you can mingle them together?
Maybe you can bring it on, because I think one of the things that I wanted to kind of emphasize with these guys is also how we know them, because because clearly, we have talked about the Practice Innovation Lab and sort of how that has been sort of seminal kind of moment for a few of us, but I think that sort of our AI perspective and we've had other guests on in the past, kind of through that cohort. But I think that, so how long, so I've known Brad longer than I've known Ben, but not by much. So Brad, you were South Carolina. Were you ever on AdCom, or were you for YAF, or no? Yes, no.
So I guess I was one of those Gen Xers that got licensed late. So I did
Same.
a stint. Yeah, I did a stint on the NAC where
Okay.
I was the regional associate director for a while, and then I went on to the AdCom. And that's where I first met Evelyn, as well as quite a few others that are now either on Strategic Council and other places. But then I went sort of straight into the YF AdCom. I was not on like a yard. I went
Okay.
straight into the AdCom there. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because I represented Texas for like a minute, and that's how I met my partner in crime here.
Right.
Who
I
just
was
seemed,
I was two
seemed to be
terms.
yeah, he
Michigan.
seemed to be like Michigan forever. But
They were a little slow to adopt the yard. Now I think there's a good foothold, or how do you put it? I mean, I don't want to go back in time that far, but yeah, Michigan had a lapse in the yard, and so there was a little bit of a institutional, memory loss for a second,
Yeah.
and then so I carried two terms in order to reestablish, and then since then I think it's been well represented continuously. So, but yeah, so that I got the luxury of having 4 years, I guess, right, 2-year terms, I think, as a yard from Michigan, which got me. Let's see, Brad, you were probably already on when I came on, and then Ben came on, and then Jamie.
probably
Both. Well, I guess Jamie next, then Ben,
Yeah.
then I rolled off, and so
But yeah, we've
I'm,
had staggered.
I'm like the maybe the thread that sort of
you're the thread, buddy.
the-
You're the thread, and you also got us a
Holding hands.
podcast out of this, so that's good.
and all I got was this lousy podcast.
Yeah.
And a couple
Yeah, I
of
remember.
T-shirts.
Damn
We
it!
sat together. We sat together at the dinner. I think it was in Seattle, wasn't it? We had a long, good dinner conversation there, or what I remember. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, and
But yeah, same way. I mean, NAC, YF, even Strategic Council. I can't tell you how many great people like you guys that we've met, and you form these great bonds. And I feel like, at least I personally have benefited, I guess, more by being exposed to other different viewpoints and people, and having them come into your life and influence you in ways about. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am right, in AIA, finished on a Strategic Council. I really, if it wasn't for Evelyn, I got to tell you that. I mean, because she was, I guess, had just won the the associate award, and she sort of served as an inspiration to me. I was like, these things, you can come back to your chapter and implement a lot of these programs. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so I got a foothold there, and here we are today. So,
well, I mean, and that's the thing, right? It's the sharing of information and knowledge, and building up your cohort, of counterparts, all across the country. And I mean,
finding your tribe.
Yeah. I mean, and it was so damn exciting. That, I mean, part of the reason why I'm on Strategic Council is having a conversation with Kurt. Well, obviously, but Brad at conference when I wasn't sure if I was going to try and like throw my hat in the ring anymore for doing any more kind of service opportunities, because it was like I think I might be done. I'm not sure if I like that game of having to go get votes and all that kind of stuff, and and everybody sort of was like, no, Jamie, you still got a whole lot more to give, and try. And I'm glad I did, because then after I got it, then I found out like, hey, Ben's going to be on there too, and he's coming in, kind of in a different way. But it's like, those are the moments where you kind of look around the room and you go, yeah, this is exactly where I need to be, and I'm glad I'm glad that I am. So
It's like
Yeah.
the YF reunion tour. Right?
yeah, I think
Got
so.
the band
Yeah.
back together.
Well, that was part of my motivation. You know, Brad was rolling off, and South Carolina was looking for somebody to take his place on strategic council. And honestly, we're starting with Brad. I was like, well, maybe this is something I need to hold off on for the next round.
Oh.
You know, wait
Right.
3 years. But then I got to looking at who was going to be, you know, Evelyn and Ilya. Then like Jessica is the moderator. It's like all the people that I had served in YAF with are now in the leadership of AIA, and it just felt like the right moment to join back up with the old cohorts and do what we've done before and make great changes. But
Yeah. Oh, that's
it's
exciting.
exactly what you're saying.
No, for sure. Well, and so Kurt's got the sketch on the screen,
Oh.
and
Hence the sketch.
yeah, hence the sketch from the trip. So yeah,
So the Octagon House, and Jamie's going to fill us in with more of the history, but we've had sketches of this is a new angle. You know, Jamie's sketched the Octagon House multiple times, and so it's kind of fun. So Octagon House, for those that have never heard this podcast ever and don't know what architects are all about, is the original headquarters of AIA National, the national membership headquarters for architects in the country. And it is now probably more of a ceremonial space than
Yeah.
offices anymore, right? It's more of a historical landmark. And then the offices are like next door, right? Aren't they pretty close
yeah,
by? I
yeah,
always
it's right
forget.
behind.
Yeah. And so on the left is on your left in the sketch is the Octagon House. On the right is that related, adjacent?
No, well, I mean, it's in DC.
Physical space.
It's the day before, because we know
Yeah.
that in looking at Jamie's sketchbook, he does not
right.
necessarily go in order of the pages of the book.
Also left-handed,
you
so
know,
you never
left-handed,
know.
so there's a whole lot of weirdness going on.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, that's the. I had to go see the newest monument on the mall, or near the mall. I hadn't seen the Eisenhower Memorial. I don't know if you guys had seen it. So Frank Gehry,
That's the scrim wall,
the scrim wall, highly controversial, took a bajillion years to get through and get built. And I think it got, value engineered and altered a bajillion times as well. But at the same time, I think as sort of an edifice, it's a really interesting piece. I think that, my take on it, it was a dreary day. It was really cold that day. Is I think that there was a lot of effort to try and orient the space to this vantage point that I tried to pick up in the sketch, where you're picking up that angle towards the Capitol, and you can sort of see that sort of line in the ground plane. That's actually matches the street grid, which I never ever would have picked up on from a rendering or something like that. So there's a matching set of lines, basically the curb on the left, which isn't in the sketch, and that's the street. So that's the street that's kind of would have traversed this site if it continued. And so I think that there was definitely an effort to kind of ground this location. I think what's difficult about it for me is that I think there are only going to be some people who are going to appreciate that and also interact with it. I don't think that there's sort of that effort to have you walk through this space in this kind of direction to experience the site. And I think that it felt empty. I think that is the word I'm looking for, is the space really felt empty. And in that, it felt less inviting than other parts of the mall that I love, and it's, I think there's spaces that are contemplative, like the, Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And, but even in that space, where to stand. You don't feel like you're being, and you also know where you want to move. this space, it was so empty. The cues weren't telling me what to do, and that felt kind of strange. So that was sort of a weird reaction. I wasn't expecting that because I knew about the scrim. I wanted to see how it was detailed, all the architecty things, but inhabiting the space, I had a completely different effect. And so this was sort of at the end when I'm leaving it. I kind of looked back and was like, oh, maybe this is what I was supposed to feel or something. I don't know. It was strange.
Was it performing its other duty? Our friend of the podcast, Evan Troxel, right when he went through DC, he called it the trash catcher. Like,
Ooh.
I guess when it's real windy out, all the trash on the street just gets caught in the scrim wall.
Oh, I didn't see that. I would have. That would have. I would have.
So they kept it clean, huh? They figured out how
clean.
to
It was clean.
keep
They're
it
working.
clean.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I haven't seen it yet myself, but I remember the whole process, the picking Frank Gehry and all that stuff.
Is it Eisenhower as a boy? Is that still the central statue?
Oh no, it's they've got multiples.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there was a whole lot of going back and forth with the family to,
Correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The boy is there. So the boy is the entry point. And so there's this kind of contemplative moment. There's a good quote, and him as a boy. It's a nice statue. It's a nice bronze statue. Mm-hmm. But seeing that as the entry point, I kind of walked in that way. I was like, oh, well, there's this one statue that's out at the street. I'm supposed to interact with this. I go there first, and then I'm like, now I'm lost. Like, it was sort of like the series of rooms. Like, have you guys been to the FDR Memorial?
Yes.
Yes.
So, yeah. So the FDR one has kind of that series of rooms, through his, multiple, years in service. This didn't have that. I think it wanted to have that, but it didn't have that.
Oh,
Jamie, I got to tell you, I'm continuously impressed by the sketches you post on Facebook because we're friends and you post there all the time. And I always stop and check out your posts. It's not only the quality of your sketches, but the discipline and the rigor that you take to sketch all the time. They talk about architects. That's what we do. We're kind of trained to do that, but not everybody does. But you do, and I got to tell you, I'm impressed by it, really.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. That's why I'm embarrassed to even share one of my sketches. It's leave those off to the side over here.
Nah, I thought there was one that we have to see though.
We do have to see it.
Let me stop sharing this screen so we get.
Is this a segue to that?
The full effect.
I will say that we have one of the great architecture sketchers here in Greenville, Professor Lynn Craig with Clemson, who has led urban sketching classes forever, and so we've done some of those, and I've gone with him, and I've actually taken my son who's 6, so he has picked up a bit of a sketching bug, and so do you want me to show my sketch now?
Yes. We have
we're giving you the full screen.
We've had Lynn, like, we've had that full. Kurt and I have had that experience. So at the conference.
There you go.
Yeah.
So my son has gotten into watching YouTube videos to learn to sketch more, and so the current series of videos I'll show. We're doing Christmas themed sketches together. So you fold your paper, and then it's a nice Christmas present, and then you kind of unfold it and create a Christmas monster. So for a 6-year-old boy.
That's great.
Bee's knees right there.
That's great.
This is where it starts, buddy. This is where it starts.
Yes.
So
he should hopefully in time, because we sometimes expletives are given, but in time he can be a listener or watcher of this podcast.
Yeah,
so, Jamie's gotten the loose lips there.
I know lately he lets the last
4-letter word fly.
Yeah, the last couple episodes, like it's usually only one.
I don't want to be
only one time. Like, so we're still like PG-13.
Well, could we
But
throw an idea out that you do like a podcast just for kids to learn how to sketch?
this
that'd
is
be a good
totally,
idea.
hey, we'll take all comers at this point of ideas.
That's
Our good friend Ed
a great
Vance,
idea.
we all know Ed,
Yeah.
College of Fellows, former chancellor, friend of the YAF liaison, excellent photographer. He Las Vegas, it's Vegas. He has made many a time a suggestion to me about the coffee table book for the coffee sketches.
Oh yeah.
So yes, I will take as many ideas because I need to figure out what to do next.
Well, we have
a great idea.
160 plus episodes.
I know. It's like
hours and hours.
hours forever.
Drawings and drawings. And me being so, you know, Jamie's the primary muse, let's just put it that way, for the sketches. But Kurt is the archivist of all art. I keep everything. So there is, yeah, that's the overwhelming part, is the body of work to sift through for the book. I mean, it once that sweater starts to unravel, it's not going to be one book. It's probably going to be volumes of books.
Well, and I think too, Ben, you know, it's you definitely need to show him Laura's work if you haven't yet.
The architect, what do they call it? The alphabet?
Yeah, the architect alphabet. Have you seen hers? Yeah, I mean, that's
it. Might be a little young for
young, but at the same time,
but still,
him knowing it's an architect who's doing those sketches,
Right.
I think is pretty good. But I think I'm just gonna lose the name, but Kurt's gonna help me here, is because we've talked about him. We had to figure it out. It took us a minute. It took us probably about 10 minutes in an episode. We're not going to bore you with that part. But there was a guy, like when I was like, we'll just say it. We'll just
Kistler.
say it. No.
Are we talking about Matt, the
That's not his name.
Kessler?
The captain guy.
The
Yeah.
Oh God! Now you're gonna make me.
See, this is what you guys are experiencing the whole thing in real time. So there was a
I
show.
forgot to, hold on.
So there was a show. Like there was a show on TV, and like I would come home from, I'm thinking middle school. It might have been elementary school, and this guy basically like just, you know, had these imaginary worlds that he was going to show us how to draw, and I loved it.
Mark
I mean,
Kistler.
Mark sounds right.
It is.
But that like
his show was.
Apparently, there's a documentary of him.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Imagine
what
was it called?
Something. Keep going.
Oh,
like,
geez.
Use the
Hold
Google.
On. Look,
okay, I'll keep going. I'll keep describing it, and Kurt's going to find it. So he basically would talk about. He would layer in drawing techniques and practices, but it would do it in a way where it was really accessible to a younger audience. So, like talking about perspective and talking about foreground and background, and there's, you know, concepts that, you know, from an art perspective, you know, I mean, I am fortunate that I do have a bit of a gift. I know that, but it's also something that was, you know, I was fortunate that my grandmother realized that when I was super, super young, and insisted that I just, anytime Jamie wanted to draw, Jamie was allowed to go draw.
Yeah.
Like if like we're at a family thing and I kind of wander away and I'm sketching, like don't bother him. Don't pull him back. Let him keep drawing. And so she just sort of protected that space for me. And, you know, fortunately the talent just kind of continued to thrive in that. But I never really took a lot of art classes, you know, and I mean, I took like one when I was like a kid. Commander Mark, there he is.
There we go.
So
Secret City and Imagination Station.
Watch that with your kid. I mean,
okay.
If you've not seen it, I
mean, oh my God,
Jamie and I both. I mean, when we were growing up, I mean, we didn't know each other, but this is. I mean, like we both were in love with this show.
it's amazing. I mean,
Because
there's things that like I still draw
I remember this guy.
ways that he showed me when I was like, 8 or something like that. I mean, it
yeah,
was like,
That's awesome.
it was so much fun because it was all he basically started everything with a blank
oh
slate,
yeah,
and then just started doodling and inventing. And I mean, that's really what got me interested in architecture or art or drawing or using my hand to to create something was because and like so they quote him here, right? He said, "Dream it, draw it, do it, and draw every day." Right? I mean,
yeah,
those are the things he used to
and and it,
promote.
and it,
It's like
and it was
no matter what it was, right?
yeah, and that was the thing. It was sort of whatever's in your head, you're allowed to draw it, and you're also allowed to make mistakes. And that was the whole thing. Was what we talk a lot about in the podcast is sort of the spirit of that we talk about, Kurt and I, both as educators and architects, is it's I mean it's a little bit of art therapy, right? But it's design thinking.
Mhm.
It's testing ideas. And for
Mhm.
me, the reason why I artificially put rules on myself as a sketcher is, um, generally speaking, I try and do all my sketches in 15 minutes or less. Like, just I try and do that.
Yeah.
There are days when I need more time drawing just for my own mental health. And so I'll lean into it a little bit longer and draw a little bit longer, or because the situation allows me to. But what that sort of time limit does, though, and this is sort of a thing for your son, is it makes you make decisions, and then live with them. Even if after deciding I'm doing this, you might not like it, but you sort of have to pivot and kind of work with it, and that's okay, and that creative bug about solving the problems you just created for yourself while you're in the process is kind of cool, and I mean it's
Oh yeah.
frustrating at first, but it's kind of cool when you start to feel it, and you kind of know I made this harder for myself, but I think I can fix it, and that sort of self-reliance as a creative in that moment is something that really can't be taught. You can only do it by drawing every day, and that's a life skill, right?
Right.
And it's something that, I'd say, like, my daughter doesn't like to draw with dad. you know at some point in her life, she like, "Oh, I don't want to draw with dad anymore," and then sort of picked it back up and was like, no, I actually like drawing with dad, because I realize, like, you're allowed to make mistakes, and you're allowed to kind of figure it out and sort of change your mind and work through it. Um, and that's sort of and it's also sort of, it can be a community bonding thing, sort of what you were talking about with your gentleman from Clemson. Is at that point, now you realize you can have a community of people who also all enjoy this, all do it different. You can all get around sort of the same activity, and celebrate it a bit. Um, that's hard to come by sometimes, in today's world. So, um, that
It's
I
definitely
think that's those are different pieces of it, but totally watch that show. Oh my god. Um,
I
find the
mean, you
video.
might have to go to YouTube to
Yeah.
find because this is we're talking about some 80s
yeah.
stuff here, but
No, it's definitely
For
been
me,
the power. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I was just saying it's the power of watching him starting to draw. He can be very self-critical
Yep.
of himself. Like if I don't know it, I shut down. And so exactly what you've been saying is what I've seen emerge out of him, is that he's literally said the line, "It's okay to not know what you're doing," or "It's okay if it's not quite right, but it's okay." And it's building a self-confidence through sketching. I mean, he may not go on to be a banker or something. I don't know, but I can see immediate results in his behavior when he starts sketching.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, well, and just it allows you. It's a different form of communication, right? I mean, that's the other part of it too, is that, if, if your kid isn't like a big reader, or, or only likes to read certain subjects, or isn't a, big public speaker, but could really describe something really well if pushed to do it, maybe the pen on the paper is a different way of communicating that, and that level of confidence, comes through that and then translates itself in a different kind of way. It's not that it's like it's that transformative, but if you kind of, allow it to sort of take hold, um, like I said, I mean, yeah, I had a friend recently ask, because they've got some kids, kind of around the age that you're talking about, and they were like, they love to sketch. I'm trying to sketch again too. I haven't sketched in a long time, and they're like, they take a class? And I'm like, maybe, you know, um, you kind of have to know who you are and what your kids like too. I kind of got bored taking an art class. Um, it just like, but then you get that right art teacher, who, like this guy on the TV show, but, I had like one or two of those art teachers at critical points who just opened up the world. Like they just, you see what they're doing or how they're talking about it. And you're like, I never would have thought about it that way. And it's like, mesmerizing, you know? Um, so I think, those are the things that you look for. Um, it's
For
not
me,
not a singular path. It's kind of, I guess, my,
no, it is. For me, it's the value of sketching in architecture is the rapid development and sharing of ideas, that collaborative, when you can sit down and really quickly just kind of sketch something out. It's like, this is what I'm thinking. And you're like, all right, like I said, you can make a mistake. All right, I sketched that out. I got it out of my head. It didn't work. All right, let's do something else. And just the rapid exchange of ideas and the collaboration and that synergy you can have when you have a group of people sitting around a table working out an issue. That's, to me, as it specifically applies to architecture, that's the value, right? I don't have the discipline like Jamie you do to sit and capture a moment, but capturing the moment, the practice, the rigor of capturing that moment helps when you're in that group with people collaborating and being able to get that idea out and work it out. It's practice. It's like anything, right? So,
yeah,
a lot of people
yeah.
think that, like you said, Ben, you said that it needs to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's not the point. The point is being there in the moment, working it out.
Well,
And
and
you
the other
go on
thing,
to the next one.
well, and the
You
other
learn a
thing
little
too,
bit, you go on to the next one.
I mean, it's sort of what Brad's sort of saying is that it's that practice, and it's the communication. Um, you know, circling back to the original conversation we had when we started this, talking about architects and different architecture that sort of influenced us. You know, looking at that work is really important. For me, sketching it, when I sketch it, it's committed to memory, like, and I'm able to think about it in a different way. That's just how I'm wired. Not everybody's wired that way. That's how I'm wired. But what part of that is something I realized in school was I can mimic. I mean, I learned that early in life, but like in architecture school was great, was because I could mimic like certain architectural styles and certain architecture and certain types of drawing. Some more than others. Some are way more challenging. But it's like you start to figure out like, oh, how'd they draw that?
Yeah.
And sort of focusing on the how, not the what. It's like that, just the how, and
Mm-hmm.
that added to my skill set, so that I'm learning by looking at someone else's stuff how they did it, not what it is. I could care less what it is. And then like now I've got those skills myself that I can use when I want and deploy them when I want to. Um, that's I think for the younger me would be if I could have shown myself a variety of more stuff to look at earlier. I think that would have accelerated my growth just because of what I've been able to do with it now.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
And probably the same for architecture. It's like the more architecture you're exposed to,
Yeah.
and understand, the higher acceleration and growth you're going to have, because you're sort of filling your brain, filling the bucket with more stuff.
And then that's the underpinning of every overseas program for every college of architecture that exists. I mean,
You're just touching my heart right now. Just touching my heart.
you get you out of your little microcosm that you've grown up into and expose you to a larger world.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Pinterest is for.
I hate to
Like,
say
that's
what
yeah.
there's a lot of Pinterest going on in the schools these days. But anyway,
Put my mood board together.
Yeah.
it's not all bad. But yeah,
it's not.
There's different roles that these things can play. Just like any tool in the toolbox, sketching is one, and then these other, as Brad said, the virtual or the digital world is so much more accessible now than all of us sitting on the floor of the library, like it sounds like we all used to do. So, yeah. So Jamie, we've kept our guests long enough.
They've been very gracious with our wanderingness. We're at the end of the
we
year,
have
guys.
to
This is how it happens. Yeah.
But yeah, I'll just say thanks to. Oh yes, yes. Oh, thanks for. Well, first before I answer that question, thanks to Brad and thanks to Ben for joining us, and always thanks to Jamie.
Thank you guys for inviting us. That's
Partner
awesome.
in crime. But before we go, Ben has a question about pens. Recommendations.
So what's everybody's go-to?
And I'm going to show you my
the show and tell
latest
part.
My latest.
Gifting yourself again. I gotcha.
Yeah, this was definitely a reward to self. Was I got myself a Lamy 2000.
Excellent pen.
So it's a fountain pen.
It's a hooded nib.
Yep. I'm gonna get the whole camera angle.
It's awesome.
Do that thing there. There you go. Yeah. So it's the cool thing about it is, well, first of all, it writes amazingly. It is piston filler with no disposable parts, right? Like, so all you need is a bottle of ink. And then the interesting thing, I did a lot of, I geek out about this stuff. And we talk about it seldom, but with me and Jamie, and I'm sure, I know Ben is into pens, but they literally make it the same way that they've always made it from the beginning. So it's kind of goes like we talked about Lego and the green room and Legos behind Ben, but like they literally haven't changed the design at all in the 60 or 70 years I think it's been made. Maybe it's even older. And get
it right the first time.
That's right. Now don't tell our clients that's capable of being done.
Wow. Of course, we don't do anything that's just as simple as a nice, elegant pen.
Well, it's true. We make more than just we don't make a million billion of one thing. We make one of everything.
So Ben, what is your? So I'll say, what's your go-to sketch pen? And then quickly with that though is there's the short, fast, iterative, like you're like, hey Brad, let's work through an idea pen. And then there's the I'm gonna spend some time myself sketching pen in my mind. Like those are two, like or are they?
Well, I think for sketching I would tend to, again, I'm going to go with the Lamy. The Safari, which I think every architect should probably own a zillion of these. They're super affordable. The great part, let me get up here, is the nib. You can, the nib just comes off. So you can replace the nib with any size. You can get multiple colors, so you kind of know which size is which nib. Um, that's more for the quick sketching, general note taking every day. If I'm actually writing something, Sailor makes a pen. They're a Japanese company.
Oh,
Their
yeah.
nibs are fantastically beautiful. 18
That's
karat
pretty.
gold. Again, you can get it, and it's a piston filler, like the 2000. If you're not on this budget, which I don't know who our audience is, Amazon sells Mahjong, which is the
Oh,
knockoff of the Sailor. Yeah, look at that, very
okay.
similar.
I've heard of those. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
these are like $40, and they stainless steel nib, but it writes exceptionally well. Again, you can the
Yeah.
nibs
You know,
still fairly
talking
nice.
about price points, I thought I'd lost my Lamy 2000, and I told some of my students that keep an eye out, and they were like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, it's not cheap," and they were like, "What's it cost?" I'm like, "Around $200." They, I think I scared them all away. They're gonna ransom. Luckily, I did not lose it in studio or near studio. So yeah, but when it's like a quality versus quantity thing. Like if you're
Yeah.
gonna
Oh,
spend time with
absolutely.
something, you wanna really invest in something that.
And
Yeah,
then there's me, like, who does the sketching
Pilot
in
Man.
in the
But Pilot makes a good pen.
Pilot does
Pilot
make
is
a
really
good
good.
pen. I mean, I can break a Pilot pen faster than anybody. Because I'm going to push that damn thing to like
Yeah.
come up with as many different line weights as I can muster out of the same pen. But it's the reason why I use it so much. It's like, I mean, I'm not afraid to lose it because they're so cheap. Um,
Mhm.
I've also like a lot of like I'm lefty. Are lefties among us? Any lefties?
No.
Okay.
Nope, sorry.
So I mean, I grew up like with like the
Yeah.
graphite on my hand and ink and stuff, and like just like I couldn't get away from it. So um, that whole thing about the pen spilling and breaking and whatever is, I mean, I you adapt. You adapt or you fail, and so I adapted really really early to all those types of things. But no, I mean, I joke about the Pilot and the sort of the inexpensiveness of that pen, um, but it's like the other part of it too is I got plenty of other
Yeah.
instruments, and tools and things that I love. It's just that they're sort of here in the studio, and um, you know, like because I'm afraid to lose them. Because I will, I'm a little absent-minded sometimes. But
So what about Brad? What's
yeah,
his?
what about you?
I don't know if I have a favorite, like, especially with you guys, but I'm really particular about like the office pens, just like the general pens. We just can't have garbage pens in the office. The only thing that I really like to buy is the Uniball Vision Elite
Okay.
as like the standard office pen. Like people come in and like, oh, have some pens. I'm like, oh, thank you, and it's
Right.
you
Oh,
just can't
the
have.
ballpoints.
Yeah, I know.
The
So you got
reps all bring the ballpoint, and you're like, yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, but you got to know your audience. You can't give an architect just a generic pen. It's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very
you know what?
nice.
I missed an opportunity. We had a segue that was perfect between pens and what we were talking about earlier. Last pen of the night,
Oh.
Parker 51.
Oh.
This was the pen that Eisenhower used to sign the end of World War II. And this
Awesome.
model is actually, this pen was made in 1946. So same a year after the war ended. So probably
wow.
my favorite pen of all the ones I own.
I love it.
For something that's 80 years old, it writes incredibly beautiful.
So I have a
Wow.
question for you, Ben.
Yes.
So in watching your son sort of go on this art journey, what do you find is his favorite kind of go-to kind of implement?
He is using, so his the YouTube videos that he's doing, they draw everything with Sharpie and then go back in and color with either color pencil or marker. So
Okay.
he's doing Sharpie, which makes my
Oh.
wife cringe that he's like flinging Sharpies
Permanent
around
mark.
in the living room.
Well, so I will say, so along those lines, this is what you tell your wife, from a comfort level, is just say, I was talking to a friend, and one of the things that I did when I've done the sketch tour for our state conference, where I take a bunch of architects and sort of wander around the city, and it's just me sort of doing it. So it's me and my irreverence, kind of attitude towards things. But one of the things that I try and do is sort of level the playing field with everybody right off the bat, because everybody's got some skills. Everyone wants to show off. Everyone wants to do their thing, and they've got their favorite pencil or pen or whatever, and that's fine. I love looking, and a lot of the folks, I know them and I know how good they are, and I love their drawings anyways. But in that audience, in that moment, what I try and do is remind them of kind of where they started, and in that moment, I gave them all graphite, and so like the Vine charcoal kind of graphite kind of stuff, where their hands got dirty and they're like, what do you mean you make my fingers dirty? But you can't, you have to think about what you're doing, and you also become very gestural. And so I think the Sharpie does that too, is that you can't be as precise and as fine with
Right.
that implement. And so, there's some decision making that you have to do in sort of the drawing, and kind of as you're doing it. But there's also a way to kind of get the energy out, with something that's a little bit fatter, and that energy is important, because that's part of the activity of doing it and the excitement of doing the activity, especially at that age. And so for me, I was trying to do that with the architects. It's like, remind everybody why this is fun, is like, because the drawings aren't going to be perfect, because it's Vine charcoal. Like, no one can draw really well with Vine charcoal, especially if they haven't done it in a long time. So like your drawings are going to look crap, but it's going to be fun, and then move them back into letting them use the implements that they prefer. And what it did was it was an icebreaker, and I think the Sharpie does that for the kids too, or for anybody really, is that you're only going to be able to do it a certain way, but the energy associated with it is sort of exciting. So yeah, that's awesome. I love it. That's great to hear.
I remember when I was younger in my career, I took a plan from a senior architect that I was working under, and I was trying to make it work, and went back to him and said, "We've got all this stuff, and these things aren't aligning." He was like, "I don't understand. I gave you a plan; it worked fine." He's like, "Everything works when it's drawn with a Sharpie." That's one of the things. Yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't win any friends saying that, but it's true. I mean, it's like now that we're working precise, things don't work out just as well as you had drawn. So I'm looking to collaborate on some, resolution for these items, and it didn't win me anyway. But that's always when I laugh. Sharpie, yeah, it'll work when we draw it with a Sharpie. But you're right. But it's that non-precise nature of it in the moment is great. Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in about 2 hours. So I appreciate, again, the
guys, it's been awesome.
So
yeah,
we'll have to do it again. Maybe in person.
Absolutely.
In Boston or something.
Do that. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that.
Something out.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. This was super fun. Appreciate it. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, because we might not see or talk to you before then, but thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. We loved it. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.
Anytime.